We're seeing a lot of heavy, severe cuts.
We have to make sure that there is a combination of revenue and cuts. It just can't be cuts. Well, they estimate at the federal level it'll be a 7.8% cut in all educational programs. And what I think makes that so powerful in terms of the impact is that most federal programs are designed to pick up the slack for the kids whose needs aren't being met.
$3.54 billion in education cuts would go into effect, $1.1 billion to Title I, nearly $900 million to the IDEA program, nearly $600 million in cuts to Head Start, and a loss of more than 70,000 jobs, estimates the NEA.
Over the past 30 years, there has been a drastic increase in federal spending in education. Yet there has also been no effect on the achievement gap over all of these decades, and for all of the trillions of dollars of state and federal education money spent on efforts to close it. The question is, should we be spending more or less to solve the education crisis in America?
The United States spends a large amount of money, $809.5 billion per year, on education, which is a lot more than the next largest spender, Japan, which spends only about $160.5 billion, a difference of about $700 billion. This means that the United States spends about $7,742 per student, whereas Finland's education system, which is considered the best education system by Business Insider, only spends $10 billion, making it the 5th largest spender per student, and ranks highest in math and science scores. America falls far behind, especially when we spend so much more than every country in the world.
Today we have Mr. Brian Boyce over here. He's a breakthrough director at St. Margaret's Episcopal School in San Juan Capistrano. Do you think the current budget we have for education right now needs to be increased or decreased?
Well, so you said the national budget. There wasn't even public education until around the 20s, or turn of the century, right? It was like you could go to education if you could afford it. Then there was public education. That's good. Generally, I always think more can be spent on education. However, just throwing money at a problem doesn't necessarily solve it. So, more money in targeted ways and ways that are held accountable to getting results from that money, I think is justified.
Do you have, and I know this is a very specific question, but do you have any certain ideas in the way we could start targeting our budget?
So they've done this thing called Race to the Top, which is basically they have lots of federal education dollars, not a ton, right? But what they do with them is, or what they did with Race to the Top was say, these are some changes we want to see in school systems at the systems level, and if you meet those systems, you can apply for grant money from us, and we will distribute that to schools. So you're funding schools and helping to support them financially, but you're also on a bigger level impacting the policy decisions they make. And most of those policy decisions were about making it easier to hire and fire teachers. Okay, we've got this limited amount of money. We can't fund everything at every school, but we can encourage certain activities at schools by kind of making this competition. The stimulus package in 2009, I worked at a school that spends a lot, and this is in South Dakota, spends a lot of money per student, but still has low achievement, because there's a lot of things going on in the students' lives, and school is an important thing, but even the school wasn't very functional, and we were spending money on really crappy reading curricula and extra field trips and stuff that didn't necessarily make sense. So again, I think more money is usually justified, but
Really, you can't just, like you said earlier, you can't just throw money at something and hope for it to get better. So maybe, do you think we could use the money more effectively with more teacher training, or what do you think could be a possible solution?
Anyway, so two ways you can attack that problem are, one, hold teachers more accountable, kind of like No Child Left Behind, okay, you got to get this for your students or else there are consequences. Another way is to just reward teachers, like you were saying, pay teachers way better. If being a teacher paid as much as being a doctor or a lawyer, maybe there's some of these people who are committed to while going to law school or med school would consider becoming teachers, like they do in Finland, which has the best education system in the world and has like really, really rigorous training. So you could do that, just like start paying people a lot more. But then, I mean, if you just do that, then you're giving a lot of teachers who are already in the system, and maybe not that good, lots more money all of a sudden, and you're spending a ton more money on education and probably immediately not getting good results. Also, raising the status of the teacher profession, partly through it being higher paying, partly through education schools being more rigorous and more selective. Or, you know, there's these ideas of merit pay, that like better teachers get paid more, or some of the things raised to the top encouraged, like principals can decide to, you know.
The solution to the education crisis is not a simple one. Rather, it is complicated by the many factors that affect education. In spite of this, one thing is apparent. We do not need to spend more on education, nor does this mean that we should make cuts to the budget. Instead, we must make better use of our current budget in a way that allows us to bring out the utmost potential of every student. The issue must be acted upon in 2014.
That's what educators can do. You need to call members of Congress and tell them those personal stories. Talk to them how these cuts impact the students you teach in your school and in your community.